Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Meta Update. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard. Thank you for bearing with me for not getting this out yesterday. I was very tired after playing three days of long Warhammer, and just simply did not have the energy to do it yesterday. But I'm doing okay, so anybody who reached out, I appreciate you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. We have a lot of the same lists and then some fun stuff towards the end, so we'll go ahead and get into it. To start off with, Guard still doing very well. 143 wins, 128 losses, 5 draws for an overall win rate of 52.7%. Something to note here is that this is, by a decent margin, the lowest average ELO for singles we've had for a given week, basically in the past month and a half or so, because it was at 1542.8 and a median of 1518.1. This has typically been in like the 1570s, 1580s for most of this patch, and a big reason for that is because a ton of players were playing teams this weekend. I know of at least 3 rather large team events across the United States, Europe, and the South Pacific, all going through and pulling out a lot of the people who you would expect to oftentimes be playing singles events, but they were all playing teams. 50 of the 54 singles players who did play this weekend were on Grizzled. There was a couple combined, a Hammer, and someone playing Mechanized Assault, but none of them did particularly well. And Grizzled still overall sitting at close to a 55% win rate, which is kind of ridiculous considering what else is running around in the meta at the moment. We do have a bit more fun stuff. We do have a couple of sections that we will be going into. I like the groupings, and we will probably continue doing these groupings until we have, like, I don't know, just fewer players. Just like the raw number of players makes this really nice and easy to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. To start off, we are going to be looking at the 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers. This group doesn't have any Bullgryn in it, which is kind of the defining thing. You see a lot of, you take some Dorns, you take some Vanquishers, or you take some Bullgryn, or you can go like a more fancy route in a couple of different ways if you want to. Again, quick synopsis of what this archetype generally looks like. You generally have 2 Dorns, and you can either choose to go with like Lord Solar Leontis and a couple of Rogaldorn battle tanks, or 2 Rogaldorn commanders, and you generally will drop the Lord Solar, and you'll have more stuff. And then you basically have like 2 options. You're going to either go towards a lot of horses, a lot of MSU, so a lot of 5-man like Rough Riders or Death Riders, and then you can maybe throw in like 1 or 2 transports or like 1 or 2 other things that are like relatively difficult to remove for your opponent. And then you make your opponent come out, and then you shoot them really, really hard because you have 2 Dorns and at least 2 Vanquishers, sometimes more. Pretty normal, very violent list. Tends to play a lot of OC denial. It tends to get it doesn't always have lower scores, but oftentimes will have slightly lower scores because they're spending so much time killing your opponent off of their primary, then you don't necessarily always score it yourself. So to start off with, we have Danny Evison. We saw Danny play a couple of weeks ago at a teams event. I believe it was at the ITT, reprising the Grizzle Company in the Guard, and going 5-1 at Beachhead Brawl, a rather large singles event that took place over in the UK. Cadian Command Squad, God's Ghost, Lord Solar, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, Armored Sentinel, 2 Hellhounds, a Rus Exterminator, and 2 Rus Vanquishers. Most interesting thing about this is the 1 Armored Sentinel that's running around. I believe it's definitely in the UK. I don't know if it was on UKTC. But I know a lot of people who play UKTC really, really value the 10 mans of Catachan, so something that you could be looking at yourself. I'm not sure why the Armored Sentinel is in here. One of the big worries that I always have when I see Sentinels, and Armored Sentinels in particular, is the Armored Sentinel is kind of slow. It is T8 with a 2-up save, which is, kind of nice against Plasma. It means that a lot of small arms fire, like heavy bolters are wounding, or not heavy, but normal bolters are wounding you on 6s, and stubbers are wounding you on 6s. So, you're close to immune to small arms fire, not entirely. But the other big thing is the fact that it's on a circle base generally does mean that it is really easy to slingshot chargers off of. So that's always my one worry when I see this. Not sure exactly how Danny used it, but he did go 5-1, beating Grey Knights, Dark Angels, Tau, Emperor's Children, Necrons before losing in round 6 to Necrons again. So well done to Danny. We're going to be moving right along because we have a lot of lists this weekend, and we have Jawad Salah. This one was at a teams event. So again, a little bit interesting. It was Gaunt's Ghost, a Krieg Command Squad, Lord Solar Leontis, a Rogaldorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, a unit of Catachan Mortars, 1 Leman Russ Exterminator, 3 Leman Russ Vanquishers, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So I've basically played this, my first GT win had a very similar tank combination, right? I was running 2 Dorn Commanders, 3 Vanquishers, and an Exterminator, and I did it because I knew that we were playing a lot of very, very open boards. That said, I was still very much on like the Transports with Kazarkin. This kind of goes the other direction, like we mentioned, with the horses, and then you have some mortars in there. Good job taking the Catachan mortars instead of the Cadian mortars. This is just generally, this screams like, hey, I want to play on the most open board you can give me, and I'm going to shoot people very, very hard. So very much looks like a first defender list at the South Pacific 8s. Jawad ended up getting a 15-5 into Drukhari, a 6-14 into Sisters, a 17-3 into Emperor's Children, a 20-0 into Chaos Knights, and a 0-20 into Orcs, which is a little bit surprising to me. I'm guessing this was probably on like a Search and Destroy, and the Orcs went first, or something to that effect. Moving along, unfortunately, Matt Hearn at the same event did not have a great weekend. He's had a couple of good GTs in the past, including one a couple of weeks ago. This one was not great. It was a Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, Nork Deadog, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, one of which has in the Aquilin Eye. Oftentimes decent to like put it on a Chimera for the AP2 ignoring cover heavy flamers. It's kind of cute. Unit of 20 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, 5 Krieg Engineers, and then 2 Lemur's Vanquishers. So similar. This is another probably first defender list where you generally want to play on a relatively open board and then kill people. It is generally, but it is like fairly take all chimeras. You have some elements of like the Doombolt lists, but it is still at the core 2 Dorns, 2 Vanquishers, which is the driving force of how this army generally plays. Unfortunately, not a great weekend, going 6-14 to CSM, a 15-5 into the Guard Mirror, 0-20 into CSM and Emperor's Children, and then a 1-19 into World Leaders. Not sure exactly why it was a bad weekend for Matt, but I know we've seen you do well. Hope we'll see you do well again soon. Moving over to the Americas, one of the other big teams events that we had in the Americas this weekend was the 40k Lorecast, where we had Lyle Dixon, who first appeared in the guard area playing Bridgehead back when that first came out, and recently has had more time to go to events. He got a perfect 100-0, getting a 20 into CSM, Drukhari, Eldar, World Eaters, and Guard. He said somewhere that he scored nearly 500 points, like 490 something points, and his opponents collectively over 5 games scored like, I think it was like 180 points. So very consistently just dunking on people with this list. This is close to what I would call the platonic ideal of what I think the 2 Dorns and 3 Vanquisher list looks like. If I was going to play something like this, it would probably be very, very similar to this list. It was a Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, and 3 Lemur's Vanquishers. Notably, every single one of them, I believe, was a Fireball Vanquisher, aka has 3 heavy flamers, so that you are more able to push them up into the midboard. Downside, of course, of that is you are not quite as able to like punch up into like harder things with the multi-meltas and the last cannon that you can often take here. So it does mean that you are a little bit more vulnerable to tank shootouts. However, you still have 3 Vanquishers and 2 Rogaldorn Commanders. That's a lot of strength 12 or higher guns that you're going to be shooting anyway, so it's not the biggest worry in the world. However, from what we can see, it does look like it was just kind of hunting Marines and lighter bodies. So really good stuff to Lyle overall. His team did not do very well, but he did get himself a perfect 100. So congratulations to Lyle, and we'll see you again soon. Moving over to another team's event. This one, I believe, if it's not in Texas, it's definitely in the South based on the people who went to this one. The first one we have Robert Moreland going 3 wins and 1 draw. Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursa Creed, 10 Cadians. And then this is a Horses variant. 3 units of Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 5 Ratlings, a Cyclops, 2 Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So it's not just 2 Dorns, it is 4 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers. So this is absolutely an army that just wants to play on the most open board you can possibly give it. You have a ton of firepower. I was testing a list vaguely similar to this with the 4 Rogel Dorns for teams beforehand, before I rejected it on account of it's kind of flippy if you take it into the wrong matchups, but getting a 17-3 into Guard, a 13-7 into Ultramarines, a 20-0 into Custodes, and a 10-10 into Imperial Knights. Very surprised on that one. There are not a lot of Knight builds that should be able to withstand this. However, you can always just get scammed. It's always possible that your opponent just rolls a ton of 5-up invul saves. Or sometimes the 4-up because you have the rotate in some detachments. Anyway, 301 from Robert Moreland. Cool. Next, we're going to be going on to the most popular guard archetype that we have had for most of. I kind of want to say most of this edition, to be honest. But realistically, most of this patch, especially with the Grizzled. 2 Dorns, 12 Bullgryn, and then again you kind of have the choices. You can go towards the transports with like Khazarkin, maybe some Krieg Engineers, or you can go towards more MSU with like horses and things. You will generally see like at least one unit of 5 Scions on a Scion Command Squad, but you can go even more than that depending on exactly what you want. And kind of skew between how violent you want it, but the core thing is with the 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, you're generally going to want to have more things that will play the mid board. Scions are the most like maneuverable around the board because they can show up anywhere. Khazarkin are just very flexible in general, and then the horses or like engineers or other stuff they can take generally just played more as a to OC dump in different places, but they all work because you still have the 2 Rogaldorns and you still have the 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, which will punch their way through. You're going to average killing like 8 or 9 Marines whenever Bullgryn charges them. So very cool stuff overall. To start off with, we have Jolan Alex. I have had them on the stream before, but getting a 5-0 over in France at Open de la Table Oval. I'm sure I pronounced that right, but getting first place overall in a GT win there for Jolan. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Scion Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, and 1 unit of 5 Scions. Getting a win into Marines, just Codex Marines, no chapter, Orcs, Ultramarines, Guard, and Thousand Suns. I do remember this was, not to discredit it at all, but it was a bit of an easier path. He got the pair down or close to pair downs a couple of times throughout this event, but still really good stuff over for Jolan. I know he's been trying to make his way up into the Team France for WTC coming up in a while, and getting that first, maybe not first, but the most recent GT win is always a good shout there. So congratulations to Jolan there. Moving over to the event that I went to, West Coast Warband, 6 rounds over 3 days. We are going to show you 3 lists that are basically identical. We have Caleb Smith going 3 wins and 3 draws. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail. Scion Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, and 1 unit of 5 Scions. Getting a 16-4 into Votan, 20-0 into Death Guard, 10-10 into Orcs, Imperial Knights, Necrons, and a 20-0 into Genestealer Cults. Well done to Caleb. We're going to show you a nearly identical list, this time being piloted by Alex Franz over the South Pacific 8s, which somewhere in Australia, I believe. The only difference here between the list that Caleb and Alex played was that Alex chose to just bank the 10 points. He didn't even put Laud Haler on anything, and he took a Chimera and turned it into a Torok. So it's just a 1990 point list. 10-10 into Votan, 4-16 into Genestealer Cults, 14-6 into Guard, 16-4 into Deathwatch, and a 19-1 into Chaos Knights. And then I thought I had one more that was basically the exact same thing. Maybe I moved it to the wrong spot. Anyway, next we have Kieran Heyman, who I believe recently became a YouTube member. Hello, Kieran, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Going 4-1 at Cathammer, which was a singles event. Now, interestingly, I believe that Kieran Heyman played 2 events last week, I think, because not only was there this, but there was another British event. I believe he was also at Beachhead Brawl, so I'm not sure exactly what happened there. But regardless, Kieran went 4-1 at this event, and then 3-2, 4-2 at the other event that he went to. But I believe it's the same list. It's Cadian Command Squad, Commissar Abhuman Detail, Gunskos, Lord Solar, Scion Command Squad, Sly Marbo, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 Toroxes, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Scions, and 2 Dorn battle tanks. I'm always interested whenever I see. I've never loved this like style of having the commissar attached to the Bullgryn. Again, very vulnerable to getting precisioned out, which does give you a little bit of an issue, especially into some matchups where people do know that, because you either have to have the commissar attached to the Bullgryn is vulnerable to precision, or you have to be better with your Lord Solar, and it makes your two like Rogel Dorns harder to like move out. That said, if you are able to do it, like we have seen Kieran have a lot of strong events recently, definitely something that you can do. But especially if you're to be honest, if you're the kind of person who's watching this video, and you're not already getting like your GT wins, I would avoid doing this until you feel comfortable that you can actually like win an event, and then you can make some of those decisions. Anyway, 180 into Imperial Fist, a 73-70 into Guard, a loss into Custodes, a win into Necrons, and it had a score reported, but the round 5 was like not in the BCP when I checked at the time, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he was listed as 4-1. He had a score for the 5th round. I just don't know what it was against. Going back to the South Pacific 8, we have Joshua Woods coming up. I've seen this name pop up a couple of times, going 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Something that I will say is there were a lot of strong to elite players that didn't have great weekends overall. We already saw Matt Hearn go 1-4. There's going to be a couple more strong players who did not have great weekends. And again, just a reminder, we do the teams based on the 1600 ELO plus because it means that you are for sure at least a top 5% player. Anyway, going into this, Josh Woods, 2-2-1, Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Lord Solar, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Toraxes, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 Khazarkin, 2 World Battle Tanks, and a Calidus Assassin. So actually very similar here to what Kieran was playing. Mostly just, so it's still got the 2 Battle Tanks, double Torox, just like a couple of changes based on like what you're kind of feeling like. A couple more characters for Kieran. A couple more chaff units here for Josh. The big thing that I am very surprised about, and especially in 8's environment, I didn't look at what the rest of the team composition was, but it is very rare that we see a Calidus pop up in guard lists, especially in teams. In singles, like they pop up every now and then. The Vect Ore that they have to limit things like Armor of Contempt or limit your ability for your opponent to smoke, it's interesting. It's something that your opponent does have to respect. But the reason why you almost never see it in a guard list is there's almost always something else in your team that wants it more, right? Like if you have Custodes, they need the agent slot. If you have Imperial Knights on your team, they generally really want the agent slot as well. Marines don't need it. There's a couple of variants of Marines that kind of like it. Sisters don't really need it either. Admech don't really need it either. But there's usually something else that wants it more. And as soon as there's like another Imperial faction that would even think about taking agents, like we generally don't. So I'm rather surprised that it does make its way into this list. 6-14 into Ultras, 11-9 into Necrons, 10-10 into Chaos Knights, a 0-20 into Sisters, and then a 15-5 into Demons. So still well done overall to Josh Woods. Next we have VetCon Winter 2026. Where was this? Somewhere in Europe. I can't remember exactly where it was in Europe. Anyway, Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Scion Command Squad with a Laud Hailer, just a 10-point filler, I'm sure. 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 2 units of 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, 10 Scions, and then a Lehman Russ Exterminator. Stefan Love piloted this one to a 4-1, getting 2nd overall, losing only to Necrons. Big thing here, you generally don't see a ton of 10-man Scion units attached to a Scion Command Squad because it tends to just overkill whatever it's shooting at. I do wonder if that's something that you could have swapped out somewhere else. So those 70 points, like maybe another unit of Catachan or something, but regardless, still a good result overall. Stefan getting a 20-0 into Necrons, a 17-3 into Demons, 20-0 into Blood Angels, a 7-13 into Necrons, and then a 14-6 into Chaos Knights. So welcome to the video, Stefan, and congratulations on your 2nd place. Going back to West Coast warbands, more team stuff. We have Lane Nussbaum going 1 win, 2 losses, and 3 draws. Lane, I believe, was generally more of kind of like a take all comers. Or like oftentimes a first or a second defender. I think he first defended against my team. But anyway, it was a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, 2 Thorn Commanders, Sly Marbo, 2 units of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of 5 Ratlings, 1 unit of 5 Scions, not attached to a command squad, a Luminous Exterminator, and then a Thorn Battle Tank. So you'd have the 3 Thorns here and a Lehman Russ Exterminator, so it is a lot of firepower. You have the Bullgryn, who are the bulk of your like staying power in the midboard. So this is definitely another list that really likes playing on open boards. But one of the issues that you might have with these kind of lists is depending on what board you do end up on, when you it's kind of hard for this to dig opponents out. So the issue that I would oftentimes see with this kind of thing is if your opponent really just doesn't want to play the game with you and just says, I'm going to squat on my side of the board, you have to stay on your side of the board. It's really hard to get big wins with this kind of list, depending on what your opponent wants to do. And against people who know how to play teams better, this kind of list just really does just have to run at your opponent and assume that you're durable enough to deal with all of it. 16-4 into Necrons, 10-10 into Blood Angels, a 9-11 into Demons, 10-10 into Guard, a 10-10 into Demons again, and an 8-12 into Thousand Suns. Excuse me. Going over to the Hoosier Hammer Cup. I believe this one is in the Midwest, based on who else is going to this one. Anyway, Hoosier Hammer Cup. Austin Howald, 3 wins and 2 draws. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Scion Command Squad, 2 Thorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 10 Krieg, 2 Chimeras, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, and 10 Scions. So this has a little bit more ability to go press advantages in certain matchups than the one we just saw from Lane, but doesn't have the same kind of raw firepower to abuse open boards. So a little bit more flexible overall. 15-5 into Imperial Knights, 10-10 into Dark Angels, 10-10 Guard, 17-3 World Leaders, 20-0 Sisters for an overall record of 3 wins and 2 draws. Going back down to Texas at the Blue Bonnets and Chainswords, we have Thomas Greer. He's popped up several times. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Gonskos, Scion Command Squad, 2 Thorn Commanders, a unit of 10 Cadians, 1 Taurox, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Krieg Engineers, 5 Scions, and a Thorn Battle Tank. Yeah, so the third Dorn, of course, just means that you have to play really aggressive with this kind of list. Otherwise, your opponent can just kind of sit and stop, like not really play the game with you a lot of the time. Drawn to Blood Angels, 20-0 AdMech, 14-6 CSM, and a 7-13 in the Guard Mirror. Going back up to the Midwest, we have Chris Schmidt, 4-1, 16-14.9, Commissar, Epium Detail, 2 Dorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn. So no Khazarkin here, meaning the Catachan are going in the Chimeras. Cyclops, 2 Demolishers, and 2 Scout Sentinels. So this is a really interesting list overall. I do generally prefer the 2 Thorn Commanders over the Lord Solar variant. However, not having the Cadian Command Squad for the Commissar, of course, always makes him a little bit vulnerable to getting precisioned out. But there is just a lot of beef. The Lemuros Demolishers kind of filling a similar role to the Lemuros Vanquishers. I'm guessing that they probably do better damage on average into something like a Catan, which is why I'm wondering if that's why they're here. But you do just have like a lot of stuff you're just going to be thrusting into the midboard very, very quickly. You have the Chimeras with Catachan inside to do the OC Denial. Very, very interesting, but not too much like stuff that's brand new. 20-0 into Grey Knights on Tau, 5-15 into Necrons, 19-1 into Emperor's Children, and a 20-0 into Guard for an overall 4-1. Going back down to Texas, we have David Smith, who was, I believe, the first person ever to win a GT with Grizzled Company. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Scion Command Squad, 1 Thorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 2 Tauroxes, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 5 Death Riders, 2 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 10 Scions, and a Dorn battle tank. A very, very violent list coming out from David. You gotta be full bore with a lot of this in order to root your opponent out. The Khazarkin and Tauroxes don't brawl as well. They become a bit more surgical than similar Chimera builds. 17-3 into CSM, 10-10 into Necrons, 11-9 Emperor's Children, and 15-5 into Grey Knights. Going back over to the West Coast Warbands, the last 2 Dorn, 12 Bullgryn list that we have. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Scion Command Squads, a Thorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 1 Taurox, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit Khazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 5 Ratlings, 2 units of 5 Scions, and a Thorn battle tank. Not a whole lot more to say here about this one. It is very much kind of like a take-all comers. You have enough OC, you're fast enough on the board to do everything you need. However, it doesn't really have anything that it really seems to be hunting with this. Like, maybe it's particularly good into Marines, I think I would want to take this into, but otherwise I'll just have a decent game into most things. 18-2 into Tyranids, draws into Admech, Death Guard, and Guard, 16-4 into Tyranids, and a 5-15 into Necrons. Okay, so you've seen the ones with 2 Dorns, 12 Bullgryn, and then 2 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers. This is kind of the hybrid of all of that. It generally, by being more elite, does mean that you do have to be relatively violent. You do have to play this a little bit more aggressively, but you do have the damage and the tools to fight up against anything. The Bullgryn tend to serve slightly more of a screening role. You have to decide relatively early on in the game, do you want your Bullgryn going first, or do you want your Vanquishers going first? But otherwise, still very similar stuff to what we've talked about before. First on, we have Brody Middleton at the South Pacific 8s, going 3 wins, 1 loss, and a draw. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar Abhuman Detail, Scion Command Squad, 1 Thorn Commander, 1 unit 10 Cadians, 1 unit 10 Catachan, 1 Chimera, 1 Taurox, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 5 Death Riders, 2 units of Khazarkin, 5 Scions, and then 2 Lemuros Vanquishers overall. Yeah, again, this is, you got the horses. You could potentially have taken more Khazarkin or like Krieg Engineers, but this one opting to take the horses. 14-6 into Votan, and then Tyranids, a 0-20 into GSC, a 10-10 into GSC, and finishing off with a 14-6 into Death Guard. Going back to the Midwest, at the Hoosier Hammer Cup, we have Andreas Hoffman, going 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, 2 Thorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, and 2 Lemuros Vanquishers. Very normal stuff coming out here. I must not have updated something here. I don't know if this is the correct matches, but that's what they have. Because I don't know if they're correct, we're going to skip them. Sorry, Andreas. Going back over to the Beachhead Brawl, this was a singles event done by Martin Cooper, going 5-1. I believe getting like 8th overall or something like that. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad, Thorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 3 units of 10 Catachan, 10 Krieg, 3 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, Khazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 5 Scions, and Lemuros Vanquishers. So again, opting to be more of like the MSU infantry, lots of Catachan, some Krieg Engineers, kind of like almost in the Doombolt, but the fact that it has like the Bullgryn and the Vanquisher kind of removes it a little bit away from that. But definitely a bit more of an MSU. You just have a lot of units on the board that your opponent does have to deal with, and they all tend to do more than your opponent wants them to. Getting a win into Blood Angels, Tau, Tyranids, losing to Ultramarines before beating Guard and Tau. So well done to Martin Cooper, another appearance, and a 5-1. Cool. Let's go over next to Doombolt Guard. So Doombolt Guard is an archetype that was initially pushed by Gustavo de Sousa over in the UK. Generally, what you see in Doombolt Guard is it's usually 1 or 2 Dorns. You're going to have usually at least 1 Cadian Castellan brick attached to 20 Cadians and maybe an Ogren Bodyguard. You're going to have and then the core things that make it like Doombolt Guard is the fact that you're going to take 3 transports, usually 3 Chimeras, but it could be 2 Chimeras and a Taurox, or it could be 3 Tauroxes. With Khazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, and you'll generally fill whatever is left with some number of Scions with command squads. Sometimes you can take horses in this, but the core things, as long as you have the 3 units of Khazarkin, the 3 units of the Krieg Engineers, and then the transport for the Khazarkin, you're generally going to be in like the ballpark of Doombolt. Doombolt is generally an army that likes to play in waves. You have the first wave is typically going to be the Krieg engineers. They're going to go create space for you, and then you're going to start brawling with the Kazarkin and the Cadian Castellan brick. And then after that, or sometimes at the same time, you'll have the Dorn and the Scions push up, and this is oftentimes going to be the killing blow. Not a lot of armies can deal with all three waves of stuff that we are going to be sending at them. So firstly, we have me. That's me, Joshua Howard, playing at West Coast Warbands, getting 4 wins and 2 losses overall. A Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad with Laud Hailer to fill 10 points. 2 Silent Command Squads. Nork Deadog. He is a, I don't know if core, but very common in Doombolt style of list because he just does more mortal wounds. 2 Royal Dorn Commanders, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, and 2 units of 5 Scions. I think this is pretty darn close to the platonic ideal of what Doombolt Guard is generally going to look like. I don't really think it has a losing matchup into anything that's common in the meta right now. I got a 20-0 into Emperor's Children, 13-7 Space Wolves, 18-2 into Imperial Knights, 13-7 into Votann, a 9-11 into CSM. I'll talk more about that. I'm going to be doing a video in the next day or so, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, of just talking about the event, and then an 8-12 into Votann Delve Assault. Overall, I don't know how well everybody else did at the team's event. My team ended up getting 4th out of 22 teams, and we were the only team that got a draw against the team that won. Go us. Cool. Next we have the 40k Lorecast going back. Oh, where was this one? I think this one's also in the Midwest somewhere. Anyway, 40k Lorecast, Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 2 Toroxes, and then we pivot a little bit, because this one doesn't have the Cadian Castellan break. Instead, it's going to be taking a lot of other stuff. 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of 5 Death Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, and 2 units of Krieg Engineers. So this is kind of on the edge of what you would call a Doombolt style of list. But you do have a lot more MSU, so you can play a bit more. You have a couple more waves of stuff. But I don't think the horses tend to do as much as the Castellan brick. Oh, excuse me. But still works very well. So overall, Ben Eisenhoff going 3 wins, 1 loss, and a draw. Draw into Necrons, a win into Grey Knights, Orcs, Custodes, and then a small loss into Admech to finish it off. Cool. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the next archetype, which is Recon Hordes. Just hordes and hordes and hordes of guardsmen all stacked up. I've played enough of this to generally understand. It's mostly about understanding swing charges and moving bodies to where they need to be on the board because, remember, if you hit a charge, you're moving at minimum of 2 inches on 2d6, plus a 3-inch pile-in and a 3-inch consolidate for a minimum of 8 inches of movement. If you swing the far end of a large unit around, and realistically it's probably more 13 inches of movement, so you're almost always moving way more between the charge, the pile-in, and the consolidate than you are in your normal movement. And because you are relatively difficult to remove, just because it's a lot of bodies, oftentimes with ridiculous saves, you end up having a lot of opportunities to keep yourself alive in places where your opponent doesn't want you to be. So the first one that we do have, we have Alex Najdek at West Coast Warbands, not having a great event. Another player who I know has had decent times in the past, this time not doing super well. 2 Cadian Castellans, 3 Cadian Command Squads, Gonskos, Ursula Creed, 3 units of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 2 units of 20 Krieg, 4 units of 10 Krieg, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, a unit of Krieg Engineers, 5 Ratlings, and a Scout Sentinel to deny, bring it down, and give you those reroll 1s whenever you do want it. So they do almost as much damage as Grizzle Company does. If you do that point for reroll 1s with the Cadian Castellan bricks. Unfortunately, Alex did not have a great weekend, getting a 1 into World Eaters, draws into Admech and Guard, an 8 into Necrons, a 0 into Votann, and an 8 into Guard. Not sure what was going on. Unfortunately, did not have the best weekend that he could have. Moving on, we do have Wesley St. Hines himself getting another perfect 100 this weekend, 5-0, all 20s at the Hoosier Hammer Cup. 2 Cadian Castellans, 3 Cadian Command Squads, Commissar, Gonskos, 2 Ogren Bodyguards, Ursula Creed, 3 units of 20 Cadians, 2 units of 20 Catachan, 5 units of 10 Krieg, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of Ratlings, and then a Scout Sentinel. Now, I could lie to you guys and say that I really understand the differences between these two lists, but I don't. I don't really know why Wesley is moving over to the Commissar and the 2 Ogren Bodyguards. It is like more durability, so you're oftentimes going to be left with that Cadian Command Squad with an Ogren Bodyguard after the 20 Cadians are dead. Whereas when Alex loses the 20 Cadians, the unit just kind of ceases to function. However, the 2 units of 20 Krieg, as opposed to no units of 20 Krieg here, with all the meta packs coming out from Alex, does mean that he's oftentimes getting a couple more models back, so a little bit harder to remove in the first place for the 20 bricks. But Wesley St. Hines, of course, the master of Recon, getting 5 straight 20s into Tau, Imperial Knights, Votan, Emperor's Children, and Genestealer Cults. Okay, the last one I want to show you guys is technically not a Recon list. It was Tucker Ricky, who was playing with the Florida Alliance at West Coast Warbands, the team that ended up winning that event. And it's a really interesting list. So it's 3 Cadian Castellans, one of which has Lodhailer. Looks like it's probably just a point filler. 3 Cadian Command Squads, one of which has Spec Ops Vet for the stealth enhancement. Gaunt's Ghost, a Scion Command Squad with a Quill and Eye for the +1 AP order, so you can drop and you can give 2 different Scion units, or 2 just units in general, +1 AP, and first rank fire, second rank fire. So you're doing slightly more damage into most things with the Quill and Eye as opposed to Take Cover. The difference, of course, is a Quill and Eye costs points, and the other ones do not. Ursula Creed, 4 units of 20 Cadians. So you have the 3 Castellan bricks, you have the 3 Cadians. So I'm guessing that's generally going to be similar to what we saw Wesley St. Hines used to do. So you have 2 Cadian Castellan bricks with Cadian Command Squads. You have Ursula with a Cadian Command Squad and a Cadian brick. And then you have a Cadian Castellan brick with the 4th unit of 20 Cadians, which are kind of like your 4th unit of Scions, kind of. 2 units of 10 Catachan, 10 Rough Riders, and then 3 units of 10 Scions. So this is a really interesting list. I'm not a big fan of Spec Ops Vet. The big reason being that anything that has like the volume is generally going to be low enough AP where you're generally going to want the Take Cover instead. But the Spec Ops Vet is really nice for the Ursula Creed unit, where you can have both stealth and the Take Cover, where suddenly you become ridiculously durable. And if you add this to Armor of Contempt, not a lot of armies are going to really have the volume to get through this many bodies. You have to be a little bit careful that you don't go into Repulsor Executioners. I don't know. There's not that much that you really have to worry about. But the big thing is you're going to be doing so much damage at close range with your Meltas, your Plasmas, and just volume of lasguns that your opponent is going to have to respect it. Really interesting stuff overall, getting a 19 into Orcs, 18 into Drukhari, 17 into Admech, a 9 into Orcs, 18 into Sisters, and a 12 into Custodes. One of the big things that you do have to keep in mind about this style of list as opposed to Recon is it doesn't have the same tools to deal with melee, right? You do not have the reactive move where you're moving 6 away. You do not have the -2 to charge, but you trade it for, honestly, a lot more damage coming out in Grizzled. But if you do end up getting tagged and your opponent does have like the volume in melee, so things like World Eaters can be a little bit spooky, especially if your opponent is able to precision out the Castellans, whereas Recon tries to not get charged in the first place. Overall, 5-1, and the team going 5 wins and 1 draw ends up getting Tucker Ricky the win at that event. Okay, next we have a bunch of lists that I want to show you guys that are a little bit odd and don't really belong in any category that we've talked about so far. So firstly, we have Peter Laszlo at WetCon Winter, going 4-1 overall. 2 Cadian Command Squads, a Commissar with an Add-Human Tail, Lord Solar Leontis, Slime Marbo, 2 units of 10 Cadians, 3 Chimeras, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of Khazarkin, 2 units of 6 Ogryn, and then 3 Luminars Exterminators. So this list is a little bit odd. The big thing here, of course, is the fact that you have the 2 Cadian Command Squads, both with Cadian. So you have the Lord Solar unit that's going to be running around, mostly ordering the Exterminators and then throwing out extra orders wherever you need them. And then the Commissar with the Add-Human Tail, I'm assuming, is attached to the other Cadian unit, so it can order the Ogryn. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been very impressed by Ogryn. There's even a guy in my Discord, Paul Clifton, who has been like he was trying really hard to make them work, and it goes like, they're just okay. Um, so interesting stuff to see that Peter does make this work. The three Lehman Russ exterminators as well. What is that? 365.40. So it's like I guess it's technically cheaper than taking two Rogal Thorn commanders. So there's like some funny combos that you can do here with the exterminators, like helping each other out with the AP. You can get the bonus AP with the Ogryn, so you're getting up to like AP 3, ignoring cover heavy bolters on the Ogryn, which is, kind of cute. But it is still it's mostly just like good stuff. If you just pretended like the Limruses were two Rogal Thorns, it'd basically be probably about the same overall. Anyway, Peter gets an 18 into Eldar, a 0-20 into Necrons, 18, 16, and 12 into Tau, Dark Angels, and Custodians, getting a 4-1. Welcome to the videos for this time, Peter, and hope to see you again. Next, we have Andrew Dickinger. He actually went 5-0, getting first place overall at the Dice Hammer Open. I don't want to spend too much on this one. The last time that I played Andrew, he made a lot of rules mistakes. So I just want to kind of keep that one in mind. And I also know a lot of people who went to this event. Andrew had one of the easiest strength of schedules I've ever seen for a GT win, so just going to take this one with a bit of a grain of salt. Andrew, 2 Kading Command Squads, Commissar with Ad Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad with Aquila and I, a second Scion Command Squad, Nork Dead Dog, 2 Primaris Psychers, a unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, 2 units of 5 Scions, 1 unit of 10 Scions, and then 2 Taurox Primes. So it is just a lot of stuff they're putting on the board. And then the 10 Scions, I'm guessing, are just going in reserve because you're putting the 5 Scions and the Scion Command Squads in a Taurox Prime with the Primaris Psychers. Big thing that I'm immediately curious about is what Nork Deadog is doing. I guess he's being attached to like a Kading Command Squad as like a Ogryn bodyguard, but not having that invul does make it nowhere near as durable as you would generally want from the Kading Command Squad Ogryn bodyguard unit. Scions and the Taurox Prime with the Primaris Psyker. You cannot fit Nork Deadog in the Taurox Prime there, so just something to keep in mind. And then you have the Commissar with the Kading Command Squad, 10 Cadians, ordering the Bullgryn from a long ways away. Otherwise, it's still a lot of normal stuff. It is still a lot of stuff overall. Andrew gets a win into CSM, Salamanders, Dark Angels, Thousand Suns, and Imperial Fists as well. So well done to Andrew. I believe this is the first time I've seen Andrew get a GT win. He did get first place overall, and hopefully it continues doing well here with Grizzle Company. Going back over to West Coast Warbands, we've got an interesting guy, Harry Geiringer. So the fun thing about Harry is he is well known in the area for playing Firstborn Marines, and a lot of other players who have been in the area for longer than I have say that Harry Geiringer should be considered a top player, but he handicaps himself really hard by normally only playing Firstborn Marines. Like, he will not play any Primaris. He's not going to be playing like your Repulsors or Impulsors. He's going to be playing the Predators, the Rhinos, the Land Raider, and then like Tactical Marines and everything that used to be a thing. So we'll see if that's still going through when he does end up, or when this stuff inevitably goes to Legends in a couple of editions. But Harry, for this event, hopping over to Grizzled Company because he had another Marines player on his team. He was playing a Kading Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, a Scion Command Squad with Laud Hailer, a second Scion Command Squad, 1 Rogal Dorn, 1 Engine Seer, 20 Cadians, 2 Tauroxes, 2 units of Khazarkin, 2 units of 10 Scions, 1 Hellhound, and 2 Vanquishers, both with full flamers all around. So interesting list overall, right? It is still a pretty darn violent list. You're really relying on having a really big go turn all at the same time between your 2 big units of Scions, presumably, ideally going on the same turn as the 2 units of Khazarkin in the Tauroxes, and then you are actually using your vehicles probably as your front line here with the Hellhound and the 2 Vanquishers, because they're all like flamers. They're all just there to be in the way. They're all toughness 10 or higher with a 2-up save. Harry ended up getting. This is definitely not the right matchups. Yeah, this is the one that we had from Tucker Ricky before. I'm not sure exactly what his matchups were, but I do know he did go 3 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Okay, next at the same event, we have Tom Martin. Got his first GT win with Guard this edition sometime in January, not that long ago. Caden Command Squad, Commissar with Ebb Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Rogaldorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, 3 Toroxes, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, Catachan Mortars, and then 3 units of Kazarkin. I know for this one it was a relatively last minute pivot. He was playing more of a like melee guard or more of a horde list slightly prior to this before his team asked him to play something a bit more well-rounded. Big thing here, you're spending a lot of points on all of the transports. So you do have those Kazarkin to be used kind of as missiles. And they have the Catachan in Chimeras, which can kind of be a subsequent wave in order to go put OC in places that you do want it. Tom overall gets a small loss into Death Guard, a medium loss into Eldar, small win into Tau, draw into Guard, a big win into CSM, and a small loss into Tyranids overall. Staying at the same event, we have Max Schwarzer, another player who has been playing a lot of Marines historically, but for this event has hopped back over to Grizzle Company. Max, if you're watching this, I have to say, I hate however you formatted your list. Anybody who goes to check the spreadsheet will end up seeing that it's a little funky. But anyway, Max did not have a great event. And I won't lie, I don't think this list is the most successful that you could make it. 4 Toroxes, just like OC dumping mostly with 3 into Catachan and then some Kazarkin. Does mean that you aren't generally doing the damage, right? You're not going to be removing your opponent's pieces as effectively with this style of list as we have with some others. You definitely have decent damage between the 2 Rugal Dorns and some Kazarkin and the Scion Brick, but you very quickly like run out of tools to do all that stuff because you're trading a lot of units 2 for 1. You're trading the Kazarkin and the Torox for something. You're trading the Catachan and the Torox for something. So you generally run out of unit count relatively quickly with this style of list. It's a Kidding Command Squad, Scion Command Squad, Ogryn Bodyguard, Rogaldorn Commander, 1 Engine Seer, Ursa Creed, 1 unit 20 Cadians, 3 units of 10 Catachan, 4 Toroxes, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 10 Kazarkin, 5 Ratlings, 10 Scions, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. While Max did get a 20-0 into Tau and a draw into Votann, he ended up getting a 2, 4, 3, and 3 to Custodes, Votann, Knights, and GSC, respectively. So I hope you had a good time, Max. But overall, probably not the list that I would take into a Teams event. And definitely not, because I was at this same event. Okay, moving over to the South Pacific 8s again, once more going down to Australia. We have Challen Kelly Irvin, who has had some success in the past with Mechanized Assault, but did not this weekend at South Pacific 8s. Similar to Matt Hearn, another player that I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe the event was just like really strong or something, but they just kind of had a collapse. At this event is a Kidding Command Squad, 2 Scion Command Squads, 1 Rogaldorn Commander, an Engine Seer with Sacred Unguents, so you point at something that's close by and you give the transport full hit and wound rerolls, or full hit rerolls. I don't think it's wound rerolls. So it's like, it's okay to put on like a Chimera or a Torox Prime that does have some damage that is like worth looking at. In the Torox Prime, you got several like twin-linked guns, so you're very likely to get lots of hits and lots of wounds with them, even though it's like low AP. 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 2 Torox, 2 Torox Prime, 3 Kazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 3 units of 3 Ogryn, 10 Ratlings, and then 2 units of 5 Scions each. First thing when I look at this list is it's a lot of transports. So it's a lot of points being spent on stuff that doesn't do a ton of damage. And generally, we have seen some success from Robert Moreland playing a similar number of just like lots and lots of transports, but I feel like this kind of sits in that weird in between where you have a lot of transports, but you're not really recycling them. So you're doing a lot of trading 2 for 1, again, with this style of list, like we kind of looked at with Max Schwarzer's list. But overall, Challen got a 0-20 into Chaos Knights, 8-12 into Necrons, a 6-14 into Guard, a 14-6 into World Leaders, finally finding those Marines that this list is incredibly good at killing. And then 713 into salamanders, who I think actually kind of do similar things to the mechanized assault, but better, especially because the Forge Fathers, like once you shoot at a transport for like 1 CP, they hop out of the transport and like shoot you back. So it's really hard for mechanized assault to really trade positively into salamanders a lot of the time. Okay, going back over to the 40k lorecast, we have Peter Elias. Did he really go 1-4? I'm gonna double check that one. Peter. No, he went 4 wins and 1 loss. Okay, that didn't sound right when I was looking at it before. And there we go. Now you saw my background. So I've just forgot to change the header. Anyway, Kidding Command Squad, Commissar of the Epidemic Detail, Lord Solar Leontes, 2 units of 10 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 1 Taurox, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, 2 Field Runners Batteries, 1 unit of Creek Engineers, 2 units of Creek Flamers, 5 Ratlings, 2 Leman Rose Demolishers, and 2 Leman Rose Vanquishers. The Demolishers popping up again. The last time we saw Demolishers like doing well was Ken Bush at Tacoma, where they were seeing like a bit more play, particularly because they did well into like Deathstrike Terminators and Imperial and Chaos Knights. Again, I'm thinking that they were probably taken because they do decent damage into Catan, and they also are actually like reasonably good into like Rogel Dorns, which are very popular right now. Other than that, it's just a lot of stuff. You have the Field Ordnance Batteries, which will be picking up like small units of guardsman equivalents. Between the two of them, you're reasonably likely to kill 5 Marines every turn. So it is still a fair amount of pressure you're putting on your opponent. However, the danger with this is always you're spending a lot of points that is doing damage over time instead of just killing something outright and like crippling it immediately. So getting a 317 into CSM, 15-5 into Imperial Knights, 20-0 into Custodes, a 13-7 into Guard, and 17-3 into Ultramarines. And our last list to show you guys, we are going right on back down to Texas with Samuel Cook at Blue Bonnets and Chainswords, Commissar with Epidemic Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Silent Command Squads, 3 Rogel Dorn Commanders, 1 unit 10 Catacham, 1 unit 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit 3 Ogryn, 2 units of 5 Scions, a Basilisk, and 2 Hellhounds. I'm not going to lie, when I first looked at this list, my thought was, wait, where's the rest? It's a very violent list. You have the 2 Hellhounds and like the 6 Bullgryn and the 3 Ogryn who are going to be like running around the middle of the board. Other than that, you have to use them really proactively to make your opponent come fight you and then get killed by 3 Rogel Dorn Commanders and 2 Bricks of Scions. But if you're able to do that, like you will be able to kill things relatively effectively overall, as evidenced by the fact that Sam went 3-1, losing to Necrons before beating Demons, Thousand Suns, and then a Guard Mirror at the end. Okay, so those are all the lists that we had this last weekend. A lot of big team events. I think it was like 4 big team events. We only had like 6 or 7 singles lists this weekend, but we had more than 20 teams lists to show you guys. Overall, still very interesting stuff. If you are interested in like picking up a list that you want to play, and you're just trying to like find something to have success, I would first look at I do think this list by Caleb Smith is probably the best like default list that you can play if you're trying to get better at guard right now. I don't know how much longer this list is going to be strong, but it is just going to be really strong into basically anything you can think of. Or it's going to have like very few losing matchups. The Bullgryn will make your matchups a little bit more volatile in a couple of places. The other one that I think I really like is Lyle Dixon's list. This is a similar thing, but instead of the Bullgryn, you're playing the Vanquisher, so you have a bit more shooting, and if you don't already have 8 or like 12 Bullgryn, this is something that is a lot of people will have a little bit more access to. And then if you're trying to play another just like general singles list, the other one that I would recommend to people is looking at this that I played. All of these 3 archetypes are going to have like very very few like bad matchups against things you are likely to see into the meta. So it kind of just depends. This one plays in waves. The Bullgryn list plays more like in the middle of the board, and you make people deal with the Bullgryn. And then the Vanquishers list is all about making your opponent come out in order to get shot. Anyway, I hope this has all been useful to you guys. As always, if you're interested in the Discord and stuff, send me a message on Reddit or on Discord. I will not respond to comments about the Discord in YouTube. If you're interested in coaching, let me know. Hit me up on Discord, or you can send me an email. I just don't check it as often as I probably should. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.